We are navigating deep global sustainability crises and the rapid evolution of artificial intelligence. Relying on gut intuition to manage these complex, interrelated systems is a path toward failure. We require a rigorous cognitive operating system. That operating system begins with classical formal logic. Before we can generate novel ideas, we have to master propositional structures, Boolean equations, and truth tables, the essential diagnostic toolkit for human reasoning. This diagram illustrates the mechanics. It takes a chaotic web of ambiguous real-world statements and mathematically snaps them into a rigid, organized truth table. Finding this definitive true or false binary allows us to accurately evaluate complex arguments and spot manipulative informal fallacies. Before anyone can think outside the box, they have to comprehend the mathematical and linguistic dimensions of the box itself. Without that mental scaffolding, intellectual exploration collapses into noise. But this strict logical system has a biological vulnerability. The human mind functions as a highly efficient pattern recognition machine. As we experience the world, we create deep neural routines that are excellent for basic survival, but trap us in severe cognitive ruts when dealing with complex stimuli. The physician and psychologist Dr. Edward de Bono defined this reliance on standard reasoning as vertical thinking. It is the process of using logic to dig a single hole deeper, even if it happens to be the wrong hole. Consider GE Healthcare. They built an incredibly advanced diagnostic tool in the MRI machine, but pediatric patients were terrified of the dark, noisy procedure. The children cried, they moved around, and the scans were ruined. The initial engineering reflex was strictly vertical. They attempted to solve the problem by re-engineering the massive physics of the machine itself, a staggeringly expensive and difficult technical challenge. Applying more logical intensity to a flawed premise does not solve the problem. It just creates a much more expensive trap. To escape this, de Bono developed lateral thinking. This is a deliberate, structured method designed to cut across our self-organizing neural patterns. Instead of digging deeper, it forces you to dig a hole in an entirely different place. The first mechanical step of this process is divergent thinking. This requires generating a massive volume of potential solutions while completely deferring judgment. You actively suppress the natural reflex to immediately reject unusual associations. This diagram demonstrates how to deploy this using a framework called the 6 thinking hats. Rather than letting problem-solving devolve into an ego-driven debate, this method forces the entire group to adopt a single cognitive perspective, like focusing exclusively on risks or creative alternatives, simultaneously. Once you have that vast array of ideas, you pivot to convergent thinking. Here, you apply affirmative judgment, systematically selecting and refining those wild concepts into practical, useful objectives. This is exactly how GE Healthcare resolved their MRI crisis. The lateral thinkers on the team stopped acting like physicists and started empathizing with the children. Instead of altering the internal mechanics, they redesigned the exterior of the machines to look like pirate ships and submarines, turning the procedure into an imaginative adventure. By shifting their cognitive perspective from an engineering problem to an experience problem, they bypassed the physical limitations of the technology. This brand of lateral creativity is not unstructured chaos. Elite global consulting firms and advanced engineering disciplines have modeled and algorithmicized it. One prominent example is the TRIZ methodology, an approach derived from studying hundreds of thousands of global patents. It maps out historical workarounds to deep structural conflicts. When increasing an engine's power makes it heavier, traditional logic demands a trade-off. TRIZ dictates that true innovation resolves the contradiction entirely. This framework forces the mind to step out of the established plane of logic and find unseen pathways out of the conflict. Once a lateral solution is discovered, frameworks like the McKenzie 7-step process are brought in. This strict hypothesis-led sequence takes those wild ideas and forces them into rigorous, testable components for actual execution. The most effective problem solvers use lateral thinking to discover a new destination, but rely strictly on the math of vertical logic to pave the road to get there. This synthesis of chaos and rigid logic is a primary driver of scientific progress. In the late 1880s, doctors researching digestion removed the pancreas from a dog. By chance, they observed flies gathering specifically around the test dog's urine. Their deduction linked the abnormal sugar content in the urine directly back to the missing pancreas. That rigorous reasoning allowed them to move from a random observation to the isolation of insulin. Crises and established logic paved the way for revolutionary creativity. When classical Newtonian mechanics failed to reconcile the behavior of light, that logical void created the environmental pressure necessary for Einstein to conceptualize the theory of special relativity. These breakthroughs occur when a lateral opportunity strikes a rigorously prepared logical mind. Chance provides the anomaly, but logic translates it into a revolution. Training this level of cognitive agility requires a departure from passive memorization. Static, multiple-choice examinations isolate facts from real-world constraints, prioritizing a one-shot demonstration of recall over the iterative refinement required in an actual crisis. Modern training requires immersive environments, utilizing scenario-based learning and branching narratives. This animated decision tree illustrates how these digital architectures work. They force an individual to make an immediate, ambiguous logical choice, and then artificially fast-forward time to reveal how the compounding consequences of that single decision cascade generations into the future. Add in physical, kinesthetic problem-solving and highly collaborative logic grids, and you strip away established professional hierarchies, exposing individual cognitive biases in real time. The modern problem solver refuses to choose between the rigid math of logic and the fluid art of creativity. They recognize that contradictions and paradoxes are the raw material for breakthroughs, and they systematically weaponize both.